This is only sections 2.7 and 3.6 on your page 17. Solving linear inequalities and their applications. So what did we do last time? Solving linear equations, right? And today we are going to do inequalities. We say in this class, you learn 3 things. And this is the first thing you learn, which is what? Solving linear equations and inequalities. We will repeat this many, many times until you remember. Okay? So, for inequalities, so for equals, you use what? Equation, right? And for inequalities, what kind of symbols do you use? We say, okay, not equal, right? And greater than or equal to, or oops, let's do greater than first, and greater than equal to, and less than equal to. That's the symbol we use, okay, for inequalities. Then how we are going to solve linear inequalities. So for linears, and that means what? That means you have the variables, the power is only 1, right? So we call them linear equations. So we are going to solve it. Means what? We are going to find the answers, right? So if first one on your page 17, if x is bigger than or equal to 7, what do you think your answer would be? Many, right? Start from 7, 8, 9, all that. Maybe 7.1, 7.2. So there are many answers, actually infinite answers. So we cannot show it by the numbers, right? So what do? We use a graph. So usually that's your 0, that's your 7, right? So we say the bigger numbers, they would go to what? Right? So from 7 on, that would be all your answers. Does it include 7? Yes. Then we use this symbol. Bracket means what? Inclusive. That's one way to show all the answers by highlight or mark those areas all the way to forever, right? Another way to show is what? By interval notations. Interval notations means what? You describe the interval from the beginning to the end. Okay? Then includes everything in between. So we start from 7 all the way to the end. To where? Forever. Then we use this way. Sideway 8. Infinity symbol. And so you include 7, so you use bracket. And infinity, we always use what? Parentheses, right? So we always write for the interval notations, we always write for from smaller number, right, to the larger number, smaller number to the larger number on the right hand side. So from small to the large, that way. Or use bracket or use parentheses, right? If we have x bigger than 7, what do you think? It will go from 7 to where? Left or right? Ooh. Bigger than 7, still go to the right, right? But this time we use parentheses. Then from what? 7 to the infinity, 8 with parentheses for the 7. Right? So what are we doing? We are finding the what? The answers for the linear inequalities, right? By either with graphing or with what? We call this interval notations, okay? Then if it's less than 7, we use graphs. So here is the 7, we go where? To the left forever, right? Do we include the 7? No, so we use parentheses. Then we also show it on the interval notation. So that's 7. Another side is smaller, so you write on the left-hand side. To where? Forever infinity, but it's a negative. So we use negative infinity with parentheses and no equal sign. So we use another parenthesis there. If we have x less than or equal to 7, so what do? We do 7 with what? Bracket, right? Then highlight the area for the answers. And we do what? Negative infinity to the 7 with a bracket. Okay? If we have this, 7 less than or equal to x, that means to find the answers for x is bigger, right? So you know it's this way. That's a 7, x is right here, right? So this one looks like what? The first one. Are they the same? Right? But the way you write, why is x bigger than or equal to 7? Another way is what? 7 is less than or equal to x. Are they the same? Yes. Okay. So, but usually we write x on the left-hand side of the equations or inequalities. So we write it this way, usually. Okay, but the meanings are the same. So what do we just do? Solving what? Linear inequalities. Okay, next one. We are going to talk about something called compound inequalities. Compound means what? You are compounding. You add one to the other, right? On top of each other. But for inequalities, when we say compound inequalities, we mean what? Only contain 2 inequality symbols. We don't do 3 at the same time. Okay? So for 2 inequality symbols, what do we need to do? We are still doing what? Finding the solutions for the inequalities, right? You have to show the answers. Then we say 2 ways to show the answers. One is what? Using the graphs. And another way is what? Using the interval notations, right? So you do this way. Which two numbers are our interest? -6 and -2. You write a smaller number on the left, big number on the right hand side, right? Then where's your x? See, in between. So you mark here, then inclusive for the boundary points, right? Then that's one way. Another way to show is by what? Interval notations is in from beginning point to the ending point, right? From the smaller number to the larger number. Then inclusive the boundary position. That means everything in between those points are included. Got it? Okay, let's take a look at this one. 0 and -3. Usually you do what? Which one on the left? Which point is on the left? Which point is on the right? Right? You write a smaller one to a larger one. So usually for this one, we write it this way. -3 less than x less than 0, right? So the points belong to the things in between. You highlighted with what? Parentheses, right? How do you write it in interval notations? -3 and 0 with what? Parentheses, right? Okay, let's look at the next one. If we write it this way, that's my x. If I put a bar there, it means I'm going to describe what is the x, right? We say x is any real numbers, right? Then we put a what? A curly bracket around it. The curly bracket, this symbol is a formal math symbols. Okay? So, what's our answer for the things we describe? So we say two ways. One is what? Graphing the answers. Everything here is what it is, right? X. Forever here, forever there. So what do we have? The left-hand side all the way would be -infinity, right? Right-hand side all the way, +infinity. Then use parentheses, right? Another way is, okay, that one is the graphing. This one is the interval notation. Also, we can use the Roman letter R or real number, but with double strike, right? We have two ways of showing. Let's see next part. Solving linear inequalities. We are going to actually solving it, okay? So what do we do? Just introduce, what did we do? Just introduce the notations, how to describe the answers. Now we have to actually finding it, okay? So linear inequalities means what? You must have an inequality sign, right? So first you have to have what? An inequality sign, right? Then, because it's linear, so we have what? The highest power on the variable should be what? On the variable should be, what do you think? Should be 1. That's what we have been talking about for linear, right? So, let's talk about how we are going to do it. Okay, the way to do it, let's write it down first. Then we figure out what does it mean. Okay? So you will solve a what? Linear inequality, right? Just like similar to an equation, solving the linear equations. Okay? We say except what? Because it's inequalities, there must be something different there as equations, right? We say if you multiply or divide each side with each side of inequalities, right, by a negative number, okay? Just emphasize this, by a negative number. We need to do something else, okay? We need to do what? You need to change the direction of the inequality. Let's see why we have to do an extra step. Must be a reason, right? So let's take a look something. It's a 1 less than 5, right? If I multiply them by a negative number. Let's see. 1 times 1, negative 1. 5 times negative 1, that would be what? Negative 5. Right? Which one is bigger? Which one is smaller? See? Negative 1 is bigger. What happened to the signs? The directions changed. Smaller become bigger. Let's take a look. That's my 0, right? That's 1, that's 5. Say 1 and 5. When you multiply a negative number, it will switch to another side, right? So that would be negative 1. That would be what? Negative 5. See? The smaller number to here is more closer, and further away becomes smaller. That's why if it's less than, you change it to bigger than. Right? And if I have this one, I have, say, negative 3 and negative 5. Which one is bigger? Which one is smaller? This one is bigger, right? And if you look at the graph, what happened? That's my negative 3. That's my negative 5. Negative 3 is bigger than negative 5. If I multiply it by negative 1, what do I have? Negative times negative is positive, right? 5. Which one is bigger? Which one is smaller? 5 is bigger. So it becomes this way. See? Right? Bigger change becomes smaller. Because when you do the opposite, that's your negative, that's a positive 3 now. That's your what? Positive 5. 5 becomes what? Bigger. That's what we are saying. If you multiply or divide each side of the inequality by a negative number, you need to change the direction of the sign. Right? So, at the same time, we said we solve a linear inequality just like an equation. same way. Except when you do certain things, you need to watch out. Let's look at the first example. So we do the same thing. We mark the line. Then we will do things like x, right? Get x by itself. At the same time, we call this what? Silver rule. Silver rule. It's not a formal math term. We just help you to remember if it's equations. Then we say, oh, use golden rule. If it's inequalities, then we say, oh, you use silver rule, right? Then you need to pay attention. So, let's see. What do we have? Equations or inequalities? In an inequality, right? To get x by itself, same thing as equation. So we do that. Negative 2x, right? Then 14. Do we change the directions? No, because we just add the number. So smaller, still smaller, bigger is still bigger, right? Then what do we do? Get x by itself, we divide it by negative 2. Then what do we have? X here, negative 7 here. Should we change the direction of the sign? Yes or no? Yes. Why? Because it's divided by what? A negative number. Right? Let's look at the next example. Do we have an equation or an inequality? Inequality, right? So, same thing as an equation, we make two sides simpler first by doing what? Distribute. I should say distribute, right? So, and here is what? 5x minus 5 plus 7, right? Then we make it simpler. That would be what? 3x combined like terms. Are we good? Here will be 5x minus 5 plus 7 is what? Plus 2, right? Do we change the direction of the sign? No, because we didn't multiply or divide by a negative number. Then what do we do? Move numbers to another side by minus 14. Right? So here will be 3x, here will be 5x minus what? 12. Right? Should we change the direction? No. Because we just did what? Minus something, not dividing or multiplying by a negative number. Then what do we do? Oops, number is already there. So let's move the x here, right? By minus 5x. So this one will be negative 2x, this one will be negative 12. Should we change the sign, direction? Not yet. Right? Then next step. you need to divide it by -2. And we have x here. Here will be 6. Should we change the direction of the sign now? Yes, because we divided them by a negative number, right? That's the first answer. And we would describe the answers different way, right? Usually. So we need to describe them by what? Graphing. So that's a 6. Then we go less than, we go left. It includes 6. So with bracket. We also describe it by what? Interval notation, right? So that would be what? Negative infinity with parentheses and 6 with what? A bracket. Is that right? Let's see next one. We are on the page 18 now. So number 3. Take a look at this one. What's the difference between this one and the earlier one? What do you think? This one is a fraction, right? It has fractions. So we don't really like fractions, so what can we do? How about get rid of it? How? You want to get rid of all the denominators. Then you need to multiply them by what? LCD, right? For all of them to be able to eliminate the denominator. So 3, 6, 6, 2, you will do 6, right? Then let's see. We can actually get rid of the denominators, right? That was the original, right? When you multiply 6, everybody has to multiply 6, right? Do we change the direction of the sign? Not really. Why? Because we multiply them by a positive number, not a negative. Now, how do we clean up our fractions? Do your fraction thing, right? Put a 1 underneath the whole number, then you cross cancel, right? Then what do we have here? So that would be 2x minus 1 less than 1 minus, where is my x? A short x. No wonder it doesn't look good. Okay, I showed x here. There is x there, there is x there, right? So this one will be 1x, so it's the same thing as x. Are you with me so far? So that would be what? X minus 3. Get the idea? Then what do we do? Just like your regular equations, right? Move x to one side by minus x. Here will be x minus 1 and negative 3. Should we change the direction of the sign? Not really, because we are minus things, not dividing or multiplying by a negative number, right? So your plus 1, so that will be x. Negative 3 plus 1 will be what? Negative 2. Should we change the direction of the sign? No, really. So that would be your first answer, right? Then we will describe it with what? Graphs, right? That would be what? Less than, that's your negative 2. And you will do what? Go left and include the negative 2. And we also describe it with what? Interval notations, right? So that would be negative infinity on this side, and this side will be negative 2 with what? A bracket. Got an idea? Look, the next one, it's another fraction. How should we start? Get rid of fractions, right? By doing what? Multiply it by negative 2 for everyone. So this one was what? 7 minus 5x negative 2 and negative 2. Then we are going to multiply this by negative 2 and negative 2. Should I change the direction of the sign? Yes. Why? We say because we multiply them by a negative number, right? Then negative cancel out, right? So that will be 7 minus 5x and 4. Do I change the direction right now? Not really. I'm just doing the simplifying. Oops. I was just checking. Oh, another typo. So this one is not negative 2. It's what? Negative 1. Because I was thinking, oh, that's not a good number. And we have another fraction, right? So let's see. Here should be 2. So let's see what will happen. Then we have to get x by itself. We're minus 7. So that would be negative 5x. Here will be what? Negative 5. Do we change the direction of the sign? No, because we're just a minus something. Then what do? Divided by negative 5 to get x by itself. So that would be x, that would be 1. Should we change the direction of the sign now? Yes, because we are dividing by what? A negative number now. So that would be the answer, right? That's one of the answer. We describe. We use that to describe it. Another one is what? By graphing. So that's 1 bigger than on the right with a bracket, right? Then next one would be what? Using an interval notation. So that would be from 1 to forever, infinity, with the bracket. Are we good? So what are we doing? we are solving what? Linear inequalities. Right? Let's take a look at the next one. For this one, number 5. Oops, no equal sign. How many inequality symbols we have? 2, right? So we call it what? A compound inequality. How do we solve that? We know how to write the symbols, right? Earlier. So what do? How many parts we have? Instead of 2 parts, you put x on the left-hand side and number on the right-hand side. When you have 3 parts, that's what you do. Okay? Instead of marking 1 line, you mark 2 lines. And they are all 3 parts, all belong to the same situation we are going to solve. So you all do it at the same time. Then you will always have what? The variable in the middle. So you keep it in the middle, okay? Then get rid of other things around it. Then get the variable by itself, 1, right? So what should we do? Get rid of 1 first by opposite, right? Minus 1. Then in the middle, now we have negative 2y. Negative 1 minus negative 1 is negative 2. Here 3 minus 1 is 2. Should we change the direction of the sign? No, because we did what? Just a minus sign, okay? Then what do? Get y by itself by dividing negative 2. Then see what happened. So that would be y by itself. That would be 1, that would be negative 1. What happened now? Should we change the direction of signs? Yes, because we divided them by what? A negative number. Got idea? However, usually we write the answers in what way? Smaller number to the larger number. Y is what? In between 1 and negative 1. So actually we write it this way. Okay, negative 1 here, 1 here. And smaller number to the larger number. And negative 1. Y is bigger than negative 1. It's the same thing as what? Negative 1 is less than 1. And here will be less than or equal to 1. Right? So that's how we write the answer. That's the description. Then we use the picture to show it. Negative 1 and 1. Y is the thing in between. So not include negative 1, include 1. Right? And we also write it in a what? An interval notation, right? So that would be negative 1 to 1 with right symbols. Are we okay? So what are we doing? Solving what? Linear inequality. Let's see some apps. Okay, so for next one, part 3, we are still on your page 18. It says, if the width of a rectangle is 72, find all the values of the length which will keep the perimeter of the rectangle less than 484. So, how are we going to do it? We say for the apps, usually practice this way. So we will do what? Identify, because we are going to find the answers, right? So we need to identify the things needed and we need to find, right? With how many variables? Just one. For this class, we can only handle one, right? So far we have been solving linear equations, just one variable. So we do that. And at the same time, we might be able to do a picture to help us to visualize it. It says what? If the width of a rectangle is 72, that means width is 72. And we want to find the length. Do we know the length? We don't know. For the things we don't know, we do what? Use X. But for the length, I can just use L, right? And it says, okay, and all my material is what? Say 484 feet. Less than that, a little bit less than that. Then I wonder, how big I can make for the rectangle, but my width would be 72, my length is L. I'm going to find, right? So I can do that. I can use what? L to identify for the length I'm going to find. Then total material I have is 484. Then it says the parameter is less than that much the material I can have to make the square rectangle things, right? So first step, second step, you will write an equation. So what does parameter mean? Means what? All around, right? So all around means what? You have a 72 plus 72 plus L, which has to be what? Less than the total length material you have, say like 484 feet. So what kind of things we have? We call this one what? A linear inequality, right? Then what do we do with it? We try to solve it, right? Then you combine like terms. That would be 144 plus 2L and less than this, right? Then what do we do? Move number to another side, right? Then this one will have 2L less than what? Somewhere 340. Then get L variable by itself. So the L is less than 170. That means I can build the rectangle shape. The length would be what? Less than 170 feet, say. Okay, that's how we use the skills we have for solving linear inequalities. Let's look at the next one. It says, Melinda's parents are willing to pay up to what? $3,000 for a catered dinner at her wedding. Oh, for wedding only 3,000. Maybe engagement party, right? So if the catering company charges a one-time fee, $200 plus $32 per person, then Melinda better find out how many guests she can and she can invite, right? So what do you think? If she say have, nobody comes, and she only still have to pay $200 to set up, right? So 0 person, of course it's not, but just say 0 person will still cost her what? $200. If 1 person, how much it will cost her? $200 plus $32, right? If 10 persons, that will cost her how much? Will be 32 times what? 10 person, right? Then she's trying to figure out how many people she can invite, right? So, what do you think? We say for the things we don't know, we use what? X, right? So we will identify things needed with how many variable? With 1 variable, right? Then figure out your equations. So for the things we don't know, we say, oh, we need to find out how many X of the people will be what? Number of the people will attend her wedding, right? So if for X person, then she will spend how much? Each person, 1 person times 1, 2 person times 2, 10 persons times 10, right? X person will times X. Then also plus what? $200 for baby setup fee, right? So what's the total cost? That would be the total cost, right? So that would be what? 200 plus what? 32x. Total cost. How much money she can spend? Up to 3,000. So up to 3,000. Can it be 3,000? Yes. So it's less than or equal to, right? So we have an inequality. To solve it, get the variable by itself. So we have 32x less than 2,800. Do we change the direction of sign? No, because we are not multiplying or dividing a negative number, just minusing, okay? Then to get x by itself, we will divide it by what? 32. So I just do this number for you. And that would be 87.5. So what is x? So we are solving it, right? X is what? The number of people attending the party. Can you invite half people? Not really, right? So that would be what? 87 people you can invite, right? So that would cover this section and 2.7 and 3.6 on page 18. Practice some homework. Then that will be our chapter 2. First thing you are learning for this class, which is what? Solving linear equations and what? Linear inequalities. Are we good?